All good. Give me a 1 in the chat if you can see and hear me. Okay. Hopefully most of you are tuning in through Zoom. I'm also streaming to Facebook, but in the past that's been a little bit unreliable. So we'll just give a few seconds for a few more people to join. First, I just want to apologize for not having posted to the group for a little while or done any of these lives. Reason being, the last couple of months been very full on with both Video Business Mastery, but also been in Africa for 10 days working on a production. So I do a couple of productions each year that I like to get more involved in, and working for a NGO in Africa was a lot of fun. So I've just been sort of getting back in the swing of things. And I want to make sure that I'm providing lots of really useful and valuable training for everyone here, and really appreciate you all turning up, and hopefully you get a lot of value from this. So I'm going to do a little bit of training. This overall, we shouldn't be going on for more than about 45 minutes, but I can do a bit of training first and then also open it up to questions too. So I want this to be as interactive as possible. So just if you have any questions as we go through, feel free to drop them in the chat and I'll see if I can answer them as we go through. But the main thing is towards the end, we'll do a live Q&A. So the key thing, one of the first things I like to cover today is that I get asked a lot about, at what point do you hire and who should you hire? And, ultimately the bigger question is, how do you scale your business? How do you scale it in such a way that works for you? You want to be growing a business that doesn't make you so busy that you're literally drowning in work. But at the same time, you want to have an abundance of choice of things to work on. And you want to do it in such a way that is, it's fun, it's profitable, and it's fulfilling as well. And really one of the best ways to do that is through hiring or outsourcing. Now, there's a few different ways you can approach it as a video production business. I'd love to know as well, just give me another number in the chat. Give me a 1 if you're a solopreneur, solo videographer, or working on your own at the moment, and give me a 2 if you've hired someone, if you've got someone that you're working with full time. So yeah, as I guess a lot of people here, will be at the point where, yeah, lots of 1s, a few 2s. I think for the 2s here as well, you'll also find this valuable. We'll cover some useful bits, but really the key thing is that when you're doing everything, naturally you're the bottleneck, and your business can only grow so far as, a 1-to-1 ratio of you input your time, and then whatever you charge per hour or day or per project is what you get back out. But when you start to hire people, then you really have an opportunity to start leveraging your time. And, you can have multiple projects running at once. So for example, I've got 5 projects running at the moment, and I'm only really involved in 1 of them. And the other ones are a combination of delegating and outsourcing. Some on the most basic level, I will just take a commission for, and I'll hand them to someone who I think is better suited or very capable for the job. And then slightly more involved level, I'll be a project manager, and I'll oversee the project. I'll work with the client, develop the client relationship, and I'll still retain them as a client ultimately. And then on a sort of more involved level, sometimes I'll step in as a director, shooting producer. And then for other projects, I get more involved in the whole process. But one of the things I never do these days is the editing. And I really sort of identified editing as being the most time-consuming activity that you can have in your business, and is also relatively one of the lowest paying activities. So if you find that you're doing the editing yourself for every project, and let's be realistic, you can probably be paying an editor about $20 an hour, then you're capping your business's earning potential by the, I think it's 2,050 hours working in a year multiplied by 20. It's probably around 30,000. That would be your kind of limited earning potential. So the first step, the thing you need to be, Tiger says I edit 18 hours a day. Well, good work ethic perhaps, but maybe there are ways you can leverage your time a little bit better. So we'll look at that. So if you're unsure how to make the leap towards hiring, then one of the things I'd like to show you now is an overview of the different roles in your business. Now, I'm going to bring up a little diagram here, and hopefully it's going to work. Technology, please work. So what we have here is a simple overview of all of the roles that exist in a video production business. And these roles exist, and most likely, if you gave me a 1 in the chat, you're doing every single one of them. And that's perfectly normal. You know, starting out, it's normal to be doing every role in your business. But the way to look at it is to start identifying which of these roles you can either automate, outsource, or delegate. Now, even before automating, you know, if there's something that you can delete, I think this was a Tim Ferriss quote about delete, automate, delegate, or outsource. I think in that order is that if you can delete something, remove it from your business, then that's the first thing you should do. There's no point automating or delegating something that doesn't need to exist in your business. So the next key piece is looking at this chart here. We can see that first off, the very top of the chart, we've got the CEO, the strategist. And ultimately, the goal, I like to look at this as a game. You know, ultimately, the goal is for you to step into this role and just be the CEO and the strategist for your business and have every other element of this business running smoothly like a well-oiled machine. So if you can become the CEO and the strategist and ultimately hire people for every other role, then you'll have a business that is extremely scalable and also potentially sellable as well. So this is kind of the ultimate goal. So under the CEO would be the chief operating officer. So that would be the person overseeing the day-to-day running of the business, and then also overseeing the 3 departments that we've got right here. So sales and marketing, product, and admin. And again, you know, if you're doing everything in your business, you can see just how overwhelming it is looking at it this way to think that you're doing every single aspect of this. So within sales and marketing, you've got things like brand positioning. So that's the marketing side, is figuring out how do you position your brand in such a way that, you know, you attract the right clients to your business. So identifying leads, you know, the right clients, lead nurture. So that typically means, you know, speaking with clients, developing those relationships, you know, building those relationships with people. We've got setting up meetings. Obviously, that's the purpose of lead nurture, is to get meetings set up and then closing the deals. And then also repeat business. You know, I think that's one of the things that a lot of people I speak to, a lot of video business owners and videographers actually massively overlook, is the fact that you should also be really focusing on repeat business with your existing clients, because you put in a lot of work into getting those clients. Now you've done all that hard work, you've, you know, allocated a lot of time, resources to getting them. So then you also need to see what you can turn that into. You know, it should be, for each client, if you can turn them into a lifelong raving fan, then you actually have to do a lot less work when it comes to the sales side of your business. So within the sales and marketing department, one of the best things you can do is hire a sales development rep. Now, this is kind of I'll give you sort of a few different choose your own adventure options here, but hiring a sales development rep takes a lot of the legwork of, you know, lead nurture, identifying leads, setting up meetings. It takes a lot of that off your plate. It's hugely time consuming, but there are also elements of it that you can automate. But the key thing there is that, you know, a sales development rep will save you a massive amount of time while also, you know, giving you an opportunity to still develop the key client relationships and close the deals. So to begin with, I'd recommend you still focus on closing the deals. You have the relationships with the clients, but you can get someone in to develop and nurture those leads. Now, within the product side of the business, you know, that's really the deliverables, creating the video content, or, you know, whatever other aspects and deliverables that you want to offer. But that involves, you know, creating the proposals, creative development, planning, shooting, editing, delivery, you know, all the good stuff. And quite often, you know, when we're trying to do sales and marketing and product, we're wearing 2 hats, and you go through that roller coaster of you spend a month on sales and marketing, then you bring in some work, and then you do some product, you know, you create the video content. While you're doing that, you're not doing the sales and marketing work, and then the roller coaster just continues. So hiring someone here, you can see, would be really helpful, because then you can focus on one while someone else is doing the other. Now, in terms of product, I mentioned already that one of the first people that I recommend hiring is an editor. Now, if you're just starting out and you're not ready to make that commitment of hiring someone full time, then outsourcing. And I do a combination of both. I've got editors that I work with on a daily basis. And then I've also got editors who specialize in the things that I don't do so often. For example, I've got 2 documentary projects on at the moment, and I'm outsourcing the editing work to editors that I can trust and rely on. And I'll show you in a minute as well the job ad that I use for this kind of thing and the process for hiring an editor. Now, the other thing you can be looking to do is hiring a videographer. Now, you are likely to be very good at hiring a videographer. You know exactly what you're looking for because, chances are you are a videographer. So, there's that option there, which you this is the choose your own adventure part. You can either go down the route of hiring a sales development rep, or you go down the route of hiring the creative team. And then you can choose which element you're best at. Now, the third piece here was hiring a project manager or producer. I think that can be hugely valuable, especially if you're a very creatively minded person, then you might find that project management isn't your forte. So it may make sense to get someone in to help with that. So this is really about looking at your skills and your strengths and then hiring or outsourcing for your weaknesses. And then lastly, for admin work, we're really talking about the accounting, invoicing, and that kind of thing. And the recommendation there is just get an accountant. So this is something that I didn't do for the first few years of my business. And I was trying to do all my own tax returns. And now I pay an accountant. It works out about, well, it's under £100 a month, well under £100 a month for just tax returns. But also we have VAT. If you're in the UK, you do quarterly VAT returns, then it works out a little bit more, but it easily pays for itself. This isn't something that you likely want to do. And likely as a creative, it's probably not something you're good at. I can't speak for everyone, but for me, I love the business side, I love the creative side, but when it comes to accountancy, that just isn't something that it makes sense to do yourself. And Stephen's asking if I have any accountant recommendations. If you're in the UK, if you drop me an email, I could actually recommend 1 or 2. But as for the US, I don't know any accountants, but key thing is just look for an accountant who's familiar working with creative business owners. That's the most useful thing to do. So we talked about hiring an editor. So I just very quickly give you a sense of what that process can look like. And one of the things I use is Process Street. It's a really good way of processizing and systematizing each part of your business. The end goal is to be able to bring someone into your team, and then they have a simple process to follow. And that's something that I've done for every part of a video production business. So for example, when it comes to hiring an editor, I could hand this process to a producer or to my COO, and then they can follow this and they can go through the process of hiring an editor. So writing the job description, this is the kind of job description that I've used and had success with in the past. So video editor needed, this one here is an example for a full-time role. If that's something that you wanted to copy and use as a template, then you could always watch the replay of this video and copy that. I won't walk through it all now. And then there's also one here that I use for hiring a wildlife, hiring an editor for a documentary project. So performing personality assessments on the applicants. Now, something that I think a lot of people overlook and can be really valuable is to ask your applicants to do a personality assessment, especially if it's for a full-time role. I would recommend checking out DISC, D-I-S-C, and that is a really amazing way to get a better understanding of the people that you're working with and also a better understanding of yourself. It's one of the most reliable personality assessments, and it's super useful. Reviewing their track record, sifting through reviews and references, conduct a test, perform the interview, and contact them to say whether or not they've got the job. So, these are the kind of processes that I strongly recommend making in your business. And as the strategist, as the CEO, if you want to create a business that is scalable, then there aren't many more useful things that you can do than that. It may feel like a lot of work on the front end. You're creating, you're having to put in a bit of work into like dialing in this process, itemizing it, writing it down. But once you do it once, then you don't ever have to do it again. So if there are things in your business you find yourself doing again and again and again, then create a process for it and then use that from there on. So the other thing that I'd like to share with you today, and then we'll go to some questions after this, is a decision tree that I put together. So I'm going to share my screen again. And the decision tree here is to establish kind of what things you should be focusing on in your business at the moment. And if there's something you find useful, then I'll probably develop it further, and you can use this in future videos to help you kind of make progress and decide where you're at in your business. So if you are a new business, if you're just starting out, and by that I'd say, if you've been in business for less than a year and you haven't really worked with many clients yet, then the first question would be, have you got the creative and technical skills to deliver professionally? So that means, delivering at a point where you feel like you can charge for your services. Now, if you don't, then the big question is, do you want to be the creative or technician? Now, most people would assume that you have to be, but you really don't. And I work with quite a lot of video business owners who aren't actually the creatives themselves, but they love the video work and they love the whole process, but they hire in or outsource for the actual creative part of the production. So that's also an option there. One of the ways that I look at this is sometimes being a talented creative and knowing all the ins and outs of, film production can actually be the curse of knowledge. It's knowing how things, thinking how things should be done. And you could always, always thinking about how things could be done better, which then in turn, makes you really want to do all these things. But actually hiring someone in can be one of the best things you can do. So the other thing is if you do want to be the creative or technician, then there are a lot of online resources that you can use, and courses like Full-Time Filmmaker, which I recommend, just really good for learning those creative and technical skills. So if that's the stage you're at the moment, then I'd suggest that's where to start. But if you do have the creative and technical skills to deliver professionally, or you're not a new business, you're already established, then really the next question that you should be thinking about is, do you know your niche and ideal customer? Now, it's not, what equipment should you be buying? It's not, should you set up an LLC? All of those things are kind of sub-important compared to, do you know your niche and ideal customer? Now, if you do not, then I'd suggest in the Facebook group, which I've just renamed, Leads and Clients for Your Video Business. If you do not yet know your niche, then there are lots of resources in that group to help you out. And I strongly recommend getting clear on who you want to serve so that you're not a generalist and jack of all trades. Because let's be honest, there are a lot of videographers and video business owners out there. It doesn't necessarily mean the market's oversaturated, but it is oversaturated for generalists, for people who are just trying to serve anyone and everyone with video, trying to serve, just saying, we help, we tell your story, we help brands and businesses, things like that. You'll find yourself competing a lot. Now, what I suggest, using the information in the group, that should give you a really good head start. And then you can also be moving towards creating a case study or some spec work. And this is something what I wanted to give a little bit of insight and training on this call, because this is something that I get asked a lot, is how can you create a spec commercial and increase your chances of landing them as a client? Or, should you be creating a spec commercial? So firstly, I recommend replacing the term spec commercial with a case study, because what you really want to do is create a compelling case study for your audience that shows we help people like this get results like that. And that's one of the most powerful things you can be creating in your business, one of the most powerful marketing assets that you can have. So rather than just having a sort of arbitrary video or film that you put on your website, it just shows your visual creative capabilities. It's far more useful to be able to have a more results-driven case study that's targeted at a specific audience. And that's why I suggest deciding on your niche first and knowing which market you want to be operating in, because then your case studies can be super relevant to that market. That's where you start to become a specialist and people regard you as the go-to person in that niche or in that industry. So pick carefully. The first thing you want to be doing is, once you've decided your niche, decide on sort of 3 to 5 businesses that you would love to work with within your niche, and get their contact details and reach out to them. Now, framing is really important. So one of the big mistakes I see people make, firstly, is they just create a spec commercial without ever speaking to the prospect, without ever speaking to the client. And that's one of the biggest mistakes. And it's a hugely missed opportunity, because a spec commercial is a great way to trigger reciprocity with your clients and, say, hey, look, we love what you do so much, and we really believe in the value of our work and what we can bring to you. So we're willing to do this first one for free. Now, it's really important how you frame it when speaking to them. You want to say that you love the quality, you firstly introducing yourself and, complimenting why you're reaching out, what it is about their business that you love. What is the reason for reaching out? You can compliment them on a project or the website or, anything they've been doing. And then you can be very transparent about what you're doing at the moment. So, the way I'd go about saying it is, I've had X amount of experience in video production and marketing. For me, that would be 12 years. And I'm now looking to branch into your industry. So let's say tech products. I'm now looking to branch into the tech product industry. And I absolutely love what you guys are doing. Now, I would very much like to work with you to create a case study to show you the value that I can bring to your business. Now, normally we charge X. So normally we would charge $10,000 for a video, but I'd like to do this first one for you for free in order to show you the value that we can bring. Now, you don't have to do it for free. You can say that you could do it at cost, or you could say, we'd like to just create a case study, and then during the meeting, you can discuss, what that cost might be. But that's the way I suggest going about creating a spec commercial. So actually speaking with the client first, having that conversation, and find out what is a problem in their business that you can help them solve through this process of creating a case study. Because then, rather than just creating them an arbitrary video that's going to sit on their website, they might not be sure what to do with, it might look cool, but it's not serving a purpose. What you really want is something that's solving a problem, where the client can give you an amazing case study saying, so-and-so helped us, generate a 5-to-1 return on investment, or they helped us get, 100,000 views, or reach our ideal audience, or improve our website performance, or, whatever it might be. That's the kind of case study you want to be working towards, that's results driven. So having created a case study, if you don't have one yet, if you're just branching into a new niche, then you want to be leveraging the case study in your marketing and creating a sales pipeline. So we'll just look at the rest of the flow diagram here. So do you know your niche and ideal customer? If you do, then the next question is, are you booking in work consistently with your ideal customers? If you're not, then the key is that you need to be creating a sales pipeline. If you are, you already have work being booked in consistently, then the next question is really, are you charging the rates that you want? And if you're not, then I'd strongly recommend developing your pricing skills. And then, you're right, I'm not sharing at the moment. Thank you for pointing that out. So going back here, thanks for pointing that out. So do you know your niche and ideal customer? And if the answer is yes, then the next question is, are you booking in work consistently with your ideal customers? If the answer to that is no, then you really need to be creating a sales pipeline. So if you're not booking work consistently, or you've just found your niche and you've created a case study, then the next focus really needs to be on creating that sales pipeline. Now, the other thing is, if you are booking in work consistently with your ideal customers, the next questions are really, are you charging the rates that you want? And if you're not, that's really where you need to be developing your pricing skills. And I suggest checking out value-based pricing. Now, that's a good way to level up from traditional day rate or hourly rate or project-based pricing and start helping the client see the value that you can bring to their business. It's all about communicating your value, but in a really non-salesy way. Now, if you are charging the rates that you want, then most likely as a business owner, the key issue that you're going to be facing is around hiring. So, that's something I've talked a bit about. And I've also like to open up the opportunity here to have a conversation with me. So if any of these three things are what you're struggling with in your business at the moment, either creating a sales pipeline, developing a pricing skills, or hiring, then I've opened up some space in my calendar over the next few days to have a conversation about that. So just go to videobusinessmastery.com/talk, and we can chat about how we can help you with these elements within your business. So there's the overall decision tree. And as well here, we've got the roles diagram that we discussed. So what I'm going to do now is just open up to any questions that you've got. So if you would like to ask a question, just put your hand up. There should be a button at the bottom middle part of Zoom. Please do share your camera so we can see your lovely faces. I think it's under reactions. Just click raise hand if you've got a question. Otherwise, I'm just going to have a look at some of the questions that have been popping up in the chat here. So just bear with me for a second while I have a little look. And as I said, please feel free to put your hand up. While I'm looking at David, please go ahead, David. If you could unmute yourself and then ask a question.
Oh, there we go. Looking at the wrong screen. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Hello.
I think the main thing for me, I'm probably at a point now where I think an editor is the first hire that I need to make or desperately want to make. I've tried outsourcing with a few freelancers and got stung, and I'm sure everybody says nobody edits as good as me, but that, in a not big-headed kind of way, that's the way that I felt on the first couple. But I know you need to kiss a few frogs and all that sort of thing. So, but I think the main thing for me is trying to work out sort of how many months, or sort of 90 days salary is the one that I keep hearing as a reference to kind of having the bank ready to go. And then 90 days should be at that point where they're kind of paying for themselves, essentially. I don't know if that's a similar sort of thing that you think, or if that's something that you'd be recommending. I kind of feel comfort zone I would want to be at 6 months, but that might take a little longer to get there, I think.
So, I think the first most important thing is to have a really good picture of your cash flow and have all the information that you need in front of you. I'm just going to very briefly share my screen again and give you sort of a sense of the kind of tool that I use for my business. So having a cash flow forecast like this, where you can clearly see what's going in your business, is just a template, but being able to say, okay, so this is the work you've got coming in, these are your expenses, and this is the cash position that you're going to be in 3 months from now, 6 months from now, then you can very easily just go in and plug in, right, if I hire an editor here, it's going to be this cost. How does my cash position change? And if it does, then how much more money do I need to be bringing in? So information is power when it comes to these things. And one of the things that most people overlook is they're just not getting that sort of information. They don't have that dashboard, that overview of their financial position. So that's really, really important. What you're saying about, 90 days in the bank, that's a really good idea. Some people say 3 months, some people say 6 months. But one of the sort of two key things I'd suggest, firstly, is having that really strong overview analysis of your financial position. And then the other would just be to charge more. Is if you're charging more for your projects, then you don't need to worry so much about ultra tight margins, and hiring an editor should be a no-brainer. So can I ask, what are you charging at the moment, and kind of what method are you using for charging?
So for me, 300 per day, but that is all kit and everything in as well. So I'm up in the Northeast for whatever reference that kind of or context that makes. But I get told that I'm quite highly priced for a freelancer and at the point of a rate now where I'm borderline agency, but that to me doesn't feel quite right. But so I think if I was hiring, it would be quite probably a significant price increase as well, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're currently charging 300 a day, then I'd say the main focus should be on really increasing your rates, increasing your prices, explore value-based pricing, or at the very least move to project-based fees. And, using that sort of forecast, get a sense of what do you need to be charging in order to make it a no-brainer to hire an editor. At 300 a day, it will be difficult to scale. But if you start charging based on projects or you start charging based on value, then you'd be in a point where, you have a lot more flexibility. So it's kind of twofold. Does that answer your question?
It does, yeah. Could I ask a slight follow-up? There's a few more hands up. So I think one of the main things that I've struggled with, this isn't necessarily on the affordability of hiring, but just with I say I got stung with a couple of freelancers and things like that. But I can recognize as well that my brief and my explanation, my ideas, I've shot the footage, sent it to them. I think I probably struggle to explain what I'm wanting. Maybe that, I struggle to explain what I'm wanting, or struggle to explain or articulate ideas. Is there any hints or tips for that?
So articulating ideas to an editor?
To an editor, sorry, yeah, to an editor, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I, having just got back from Africa, one of the projects is a 10-day shoot. I've just handed off to an editor he's going to be working on it. So that's something I'm right in the middle of at the moment. What I did during the production was create a one sheet. So, say what I shot on each day and make, detailed notes of the kind of key ideas that I wanted to convey, what was the reason that I shot each part that I did, sort of notes on each of the interviewees. And it's made it so seamless handing it off to the editor. We then send him the one sheet, he looks through the rushes, we have a conversation about the kind of direction of it, he gives his input. And the best thing is that when you're hiring someone, you want them to be better than you. Yeah. And then they start to have all these amazing ideas that you wouldn't have, and then the quality of your productions go up, and then you make even better case studies and your business grows. It's partly about just trusting in the process and trusting in the person that you hire. And it really is like for every person that I speak to, and including myself, that first hurdle is letting go of the creative process and trusting in someone else. But putting a job application out there, putting a job post out there, and just looking at what talent is out there and finding someone that aligns with your project, someone that you can trust in, you'll be amazed at just how good the quality of talent is that's out there and how much it can really help once you start to trust in the process and you bring someone on. Does that answer your question?
It does. Absolutely. Appreciate it, mate. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for the question. Who have we got? We've got Y Van. Can you unmute yourself?
There we go. Yeah, am I good?
Hey. Yeah, hey.
Hi, how are you?
Good,
okay, yeah, I had a very similar question to the gentleman who asked before. So I don't know if it's possible to expand, even if I have a question, but I had very similar experiences where I've tried to hire people in the past. I do both combination of photography and video, and I found that I had to kind of re-edit a lot of the work that I had given to them in order to kind of get the standard. So it could be very similar to the question asked before. I just feel like I'm in this place now where it's like frustrating to maybe even try to hire someone, knowing it's going to be a big a time suck, I guess we could call it.
Yeah, it's really about making sure you communicate well with the editor and you give them all the information they need. I think that's the key. If you give someone the right instructions, you give them the right input, you get the right output. I'm just seeing now if I've got an example of one that I can share with you. So it might be too tricky to. I'm not going to be able to find it right now, but the key thing is firstly, invest that time at the beginning in making sure that you find someone that is actually, you know, is talented, and ask for super specific examples. You know, if you put a job out into a job ad into a Facebook group, let's say I like Indeed.com, you know, sometimes get like 100 applications from a job post on Indeed. And within that, I give them very specific criteria. I say, you know, look, we're going to be editing 60-second shorts for an educational business. And, you know, this is the kind of thing we're producing. Please send me your 3 best examples of 60-second educational shorts. And this is something that a lot of people don't do. They're way too broad about what they ask for. But if you can be very specific about what you're asking for, you'll get a specialist, and you'll get someone who's far more likely to be able to deliver what you want, and, you know, be even better than you are at that particular thing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think so. Okay, great. Thank you very much.
All right. Yeah. Thanks for the question. W Noise.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Hello. Yes.
Perfect. Yeah, I've got a question. I'm interested about the sales rep and how to capture one, how to get one on board with what you're doing. How did you find maybe yours, or if you've got any tips, or I guess maybe you know, top 5 qualities of an effective sales development rep. I'd love to know that.
Yeah, sure thing. That's a good question. And that has been one of the more challenging things in my business. So the first thing I ever did and down this route was I partnered with someone on a 50-50 basis, pretty much, within my video production business. And it was a bit of a disaster, to be honest. It was really difficult to balance out the roles and responsibilities. And, you know, there was a bit of a clash, and we ended up parting ways after, I think, like a year and a half or so. He was a good salesperson, and we're both working hard, but it was just like there were too many. I found it was like too, it created too many issues trying to do that sort of 50-50 divide. So from there on, I always decided it makes much more sense to just pay someone for their work, pay someone for their time. And so that's the principle that I've always followed since, and that's served me really well. So then the kind of big question is, well, how much do you pay people, and how do you go about that? So the first thing, again, like I've had a lot of success with using Indeed.com for hiring. And you've really got the two options. You either go for someone who's experienced, who can bring a lot to the table. They're not going to require all that much coaching and instruction, but they're going to charge a lot more. And, you know, they say a good salesperson is never out of work. So it can be difficult to find someone who's really good. Now, the other way of going about it is to find someone who's a good fit in terms of personality, but may not yet have the skills. Now, that obviously means then you have to coach them on those skills, and you have to bring them up to the speed with your way of working. But if you're just starting out, what I really recommend is not to cut any corners and just get a level of mastery over sales yourself. You know, invest some time into learning how to sell, how to nurture leads, how to identify your ideal clients. And when you've got that level of mastery, then it's going to be all that much easier to then bring someone on board and say, look, this is what we're doing. This is what's working. And this is the process that we follow. And you're going to be able to get someone that's much more affordable, and you're going to sort of bring them into your company culture and your way of doing things, and you can expand the team that way. So, you know, if you do have capital to begin with, you know, you've got money to start, and you can invest in hiring a talented salesperson straight off the bat, then awesome. You know, that's where capital is going to help you grow faster. But if not, then, you know, we either pay for things in money or in time. The second option is pay for it with your time, learn those skills yourself, become a competent salesperson, have some level of mastery over it, and then train someone else. And similar to the tip with editing is that hiring, you know, with hiring an editor, is that you'll be amazed at the level of talent when you do a good job post, and when you have a look around. You know, you got to again. So I did a kind of similar to a salesperson job posting recently, and had around 80 applicants. And I said within the job posting, if you're interested in this role, please send a 3-minute video introducing yourself by email to da-da-da. And what I got of 80 applicants was only about 6 to 8 people actually sent video introductions, which very quickly whittled down the list. But I had 6 committed people who'd taken time out of their day to record a video introduction, could see, the sort of, I learned a lot more about them that way. And so that would be my tip, is firstly, have a qualifying process, have a step that they had to follow. I do recommend using something like Indeed, but then, or otherwise you can use Facebook groups and other places. But Indeed is great because you don't have to pay for the applications, don't pay for the job posting unless you decide to take them to the next step, if that makes sense. So something you can do is just put a job post out there, and you don't have to hire anyone, but you can just assess what kind of talent is out there. Is this something that, it might just surprise you, and you might find the perfect candidate. Does that help?
That helps too. Do you take the applicants out of the Indeed platform then and into the email sequence? Is that essentially how you kind of skirt the Indeed fee?
No, you actually don't pay on Indeed unless so if you reject an applicant on Indeed, then you don't pay anything.
Right.
I think you've got 72 hours to reject the applicant.
Okay.
If you do move forward with them, then it will charge you whatever nominal fee you put in. So it might be £15 per application. I think that's what I was doing.
Awesome.
I mean, you can sort of skirt around the process too, but you actually don't need to, because they allow you to reject applicants and then not pay anything.
Sweet. Thanks, Jackson. Appreciate your time, man.
No worries. Thanks for the question. Tim Thomas. We've got a few minutes left.
Hey, how you doing today?
Hey.
So my question is more around the process of managing when you bring in other people in, like what systems are you using or what type of software are you using to make sure that everybody's doing their job on time? And then the second part to that is moving footage. So I have a problem with moving bulks of footage to the editors or certain people who need it, because it just takes a long time. So do you have something that you use for that to speed up the process?
For the second question, I think it's UPS or Royal Mail, or it's just posting hard drives around.
Oh, okay. So you're sending hard drive. Okay, so no digital sending. Okay.
Yeah, my process on a shoot is back up to 2 or 3 hard drives. So I've got 3 copies, and then when I get back, I just stick one in the post, send it off to the editor, unless it's a really small project. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that I just rely on the post and do next day delivery. So as for your other question, it was, kind of what processes or what platforms are we using for managing people?
Yes, just to make sure these projects are, because if you're dealing with 5 projects, dealing with the sales rep or dealing with all these different people, you kind of want to have them.
Of course. I say there are thousands of different project management softwares and things for this. I used to use ClickUp, which I really like, but now I use Monday.com for everything. There are other things like Asana as well, but I think Monday.com is one of the most user-friendly. And I just have different categories, got editor, got sales rep, and under each we've got, the Kanban charts. We've got sort of what's upcoming, what's in progress, what's been completed, and then we can kind of report back, see where each person's at, see what they're working on, and try and keep it all within one platform. So there's that. There's having shared calendars. So make sure everyone's calendars are synced up and they're putting in their availability. That's been really useful. And then the third thing is just Google Drive. And I like it because you've got the shared spreadsheets and documents and everything. So kind of just between those 3 things, I try and keep everything contained within that, because otherwise you end up with 1,000 different softwares and paying crazy amounts of money every year for all these different things. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Cool. Yeah, no worries. Let's, all right, we'll do one more question, and let's go to Gregory Mandry.
Hello. I was going to ask a thing about the sales, a sales rep, but you kind of answered that pretty much in depth. But I was going to flip that and say, do you use any lead generating services, either email or phone or LinkedIn or any of those kind of? People offer various different pipeline services? Do you use any of those, and what would you recommend?
Yeah, so I don't use any of the kind of agency offers where they try and take it all off your plate for you. It kind of is too good to be true, in the sense that no other person can really know your audience and your business and your marketing as well as you can and you should. So I think it's really important to have control over that process yourself. But then there are lots of systems that you can put in place. I strongly recommend LinkedIn. I mean, if you're part of the Facebook group and done the sort of mini course and stuff that I've run, you know, LinkedIn I find is the most powerful tool in terms of being able to reach business owners, and also categorize and filter based on company size, location, you know, all these different things, especially if you're using Sales Navigator. So that's incredibly useful. And then also you can automate some aspects of the LinkedIn outreach process. But if you're kind of looking for somewhere to start with at the moment, I recommend using just a combination of LinkedIn and an email outreach too. So those two are a really good place to start. You know, get very clear on exactly what niche or what market you want to be reaching out to, and then using those two. One of the nice things about LinkedIn as well is, as you start connecting with more people within your niche, you start to build momentum, because all those third-degree connections become second-degree connections. It becomes easier and easier to connect with people. And over time, you also have an audience to remarket to by doing posts on LinkedIn. So, you know, very quickly you can end up with 1,000 or 2,000 connections within your niche. And then all that targeted outbound work you've been doing, you know, all that targeted sales also then starts to become an inbound machine too, because any posts that you make are reaching, you know, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 eyeballs of decision makers within your niche that you've decided to connect with. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that does. That's great. Actually, that's really useful. Thank you.
Awesome. So we're just coming to the end now. We're just running for 45 minutes. Paul's asking about the Facebook group. If you're not part of the Facebook group, you're welcome to go ahead and join it. I'll be doing more lives like this occasionally, but also if you've got any questions that you think of in the meantime, feel free to ask in the Facebook group. And as I mentioned before, if you want help with any of the aspects of sort of building out your sales pipeline, with the hiring process, or, you know, freeing up time in your business, then head over to videobusinessmastery.com/talk. And I've set up some time in the next few days to have a conversation. We can see if there are ways that we can help your business, and also if there are some suggestions I can make to help you move forward. So we'll leave it there for today, but thank you all very much for showing up. It's been a good turnout. It's been a pleasure speaking to you all. Sorry if I didn't get around to answering your questions, but when I do another Facebook Live, I hope to see you then, and also, you know, have another opportunity to talk. So yeah, have a great rest of the day or evening or wherever you are in the world. Thanks, everyone.